I don't have words on.
Good morning. It's another great Sunday morning here on the Speaker's Corner where we ask you to think. I am Jeff Wheeler, under the shadow of the Gold Dome in lovely downtown Atlanta, Georgia, and my new toy in the background. And I would like to introduce, in the second corner of these two Speaker's Corner, is Tom Holm from illustrious New York City. Say good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Tom.
Wait. I should really come up with a better way to say that than good morning, Tom, right? Say good morning.
Otherwise, we're going to keep doing this
I know.
every week.
We do this every week, and I just really need a new phrase. So if any of you people who watch the show have a great way for me to say that, feel free to write in. And if not, I will make up new ways to say it. So we got a lot of things that have happened this week that have made the Twitterati. Did you know that they had added the word Twitterati to the dictionary? To what was it?
I was not aware.
Twitterati, Twitterati, as in those who are proficient and commonly found on Twitter. So, the Twitterati have been speaking heavily, and those in social medias have been speaking heavily of the social change that was brought about by our SCOTUS this past week. SCOTUS has made quite a bit of news, and this is typically one of the weeks of the year where SCOTUS does release decisions and therefore makes lots of things doing. So let me start with the very most important decision that the SCOTUS has made. Horn versus the Department of Agriculture.
What?
So if you were not aware, the raisin cartel out in California had complete and utter control over the production of raisins in California. They were both able to dictate the quantity of raisins that any given farmer would be able to sell on the open market, and would be able to deem that farmer's crop be issued to the cartel's own storage at any given moment, which means that there was a very interesting market for raisins. Now, all this came out of the Second World War, and in the Second World War, the GIs loved their raisins. So in California, there was large amounts of raisin production that was set up during the Second World War. Or maybe it was the First World War. Yeah, it was the First World War. Sorry, First World War. And then when the recession, or the Great Depression came along, the raisin farmers got hit extremely hard. So the FDR, I can't even think of the word, the FDR group, the people that worked for FDR, administration. The FDR administration allowed for the development of the raisin coalition group, or whatever they call it, but it's basically a cartel of the farmers of raisins, so that they could control the quantity of raisins that are sold on any given year, and therefore control for the price. So they established this, maintain price levels at a very stagnant place. And since raisins store very well for many years, being a dried product, they were able to do that effectively. And so this week, in 2006, there was a raisin farm. There was a glut of raisins on the market. They said you could only sell like 55% of your crop, and that 46% of your crop was supposed to be held back in the storage. And so therefore one of the farmers said, to hell with that, I'm going to sell all of my raisins on the black market at whatever price I can get them for. And he got arguably a higher price for his raisins based on the fact that that the cartel was depressing supply for that year, even though it was a very good year for rain, et cetera, et cetera. So the raisins grew very well that year, and there should have been a glut, and the price should have reduced. But because of the cartel, they kept the price high and stored away a bunch of the raisins. He was then sued by the cartel, and he took it all the way to the Supreme Court. Since 2006, now the case was actually heard in front of the Supreme Court during this session, and they sided with the farmer. So now no longer can any group or government law dictate what the fruits of a man's labor can be sold, when they can be sold, and how much they can be sold for. Is that about right?
It's a little bit. It's right. Let me make one clarification that I know we both understand, but may not have been communicated. The National Raisin Reserve, which is the name of the cartel,
right?
It's a government organization, so it's not a private. It isn't like a.
But they're not paid. But they're not paid by the government. It is a government-sanctioned organization, right? I don't think that they're employees of the government. I think it is a government-sanctioned organization that makes recommendations to the Department of Agriculture or the Department of Commerce or some such thing, who then writes the rule based on this Raisin Coalition's recommendations.
Yeah, the Raisin Administrative Committee is a federal marketing owner. Yeah. Office on Capitol Street. I don't know what that means, but true. It's a government-sanctioned organization, I guess, is what you're saying.
Right, yeah. Right. And they make a recommendation to government entities who are government-paid employees who basically do whatever this organization says do.
Right.
Which makes it very much government entity saying what you can and can't sell.
So, why should I give two raisins about a bunch of raisin farmers, Jeff?
To me, it has everything to do with the fruits of your labor and the government dictating whether or not you can sell the fruits of your labor. It's a very socialist concept to say you can't sell the fruits of your own labor. And this is quite literally the fruit of your labor.
I think it's bigger than this. It's actually, I shouldn't say I think. I know it's big. It's even bigger than that. Because of the language used in the ruling, one of the, I can't remember if it was the,
Roberts wrote the ruling.
If it was his opinion, you know, because like there'll be like several opinions, and those can agree to only certain opinions or whatever, even though they vote in favor of the overall resolution. Was that something along the lines of, you know, if the government seizes your car, you are, you know, because it is eminent domain. It's an extension of eminent domain beyond just the there's the understanding that if the government takes your landed property, they are obliged to pay you, you know, the reasonable market value for said seized property when it's being seized for the public good. Now, the idea is that this culling or holding back of raisins was being done for the national good. So the extension of eminent domain to property beyond just land property could have huge implications for everything. Beyond, so it's not like, so that's why we joked, like, what does raisins have to do with me? Everything. It has everything to do with you now. This is really kind of a I wouldn't say a reining in of government power, but a kind of check to be like, y'all better recognize that if you do that, you are obliged to then follow through with proper compensation.
Right, and they said it's agriculture marketing orders. So, yep, the Raisin Valley farmers, and there was a guy named Marvin Horn.
Marvin Horn.
Marvin Horn.
And it was established in
47% of his crop had to be surrendered.
It was 1949, so it was after the Second World War.
Okay, Second World War.
The Raisin Administrative Committee was set up.
Gotcha.
Raisins, man.
Raisins.
Ew, little dried bits of goodness, bringing us some better goodness. Yeah.
So it was in violation of the Fifth Amendment, seizure of their crop without payment as an unconstitutional taking of property. And it was a 9-0 decision, which overturned another lower court decision in the opposite regard.
Yeah, well, we're gonna make sure we give the scores, and we're best tell you any interesting votes that went either way. So a 9-0 decision in Horn v. Department of Agriculture. Great.
All right, so then the next one.
Anything else happen?
You know, really, I think that's probably it. You want to call this one a week in the books?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
yeah, I do, but oh, they're actually later in the week. I think it may have actually even been in the same day. I can't remember. Was that their old Supreme Court made a decision regarding Affordable Care. All the Affordable Care Act, also known as the Obamacare.
Right.
It was a 6-3 decision with John Roberts joining the majority, which the majority included the 4 liberal members and Kennedy, the swing vote.
So on the 22nd was the Raisin decision, Horn versus USDA, and the ACA was released on the 25th. 5th,
correct.
25th.
Thursday, right? Yeah.
Thursday.
And what it did was there had been a challenge based on language in the Affordable Care Act, which had to do with subsidies and how subsidies are applied. What it came down to was the argument was the wording basically read that subsidies were only to be subsidies for people who cannot afford to buy insurance on the exchanges were only to be applied to people who are buying on state exchanges, thus not this is the argument, not my belief. This is the argument. The argument was that then this did not apply to states that did not set up their own exchanges and thus were having their exchanges administered by the federal government. The argument was that thus these subsidies do not apply to states that don't have their own exchange. It only applies, federal subsidies only apply to states setting up their own exchanges. It was if the decision had gone the other way, this would have significantly scuttled the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, because I think like 19 million people would have lost their insurance. Basically, we would throw a switch. So it's a huge victory for the Obama administration. And I will also argue with this one and the next one, it's also a huge victory for the Republican 2016 candidates, because because if the decision had gone the other way, a huge piece of Obamacare would be eliminated.
Right.
The system would basically fall apart. 19 million people would be would lose their insurance. Who are they going to blame? Who are they going to blame?
The Republican Party.
Republicans.
Because they're the ones who are pushing it.
Yeah, but now the status quo can continue, and the Republicans
and those
still
people are quiet now, so that they get to just live about their lives, and they won't be energized and show up at the polls.
Unlike
they will be quiet, and the people who are pissed off about all this news are going to show up at the polls. Brilliant, Tom. Yeah. Brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I this is why both with this decision, because I know a lot of people I work with and were ecstatic both decisions, and I was happy, but in the back of my mind I was like, the darkness creeped in, and I was like, oh man, and in fact I did read a quote by an unnamed I don't know if he was he wasn't an elected official, but I think he was a backroom person for an elected official who was like basically kind of said, thank God, we dodged a bullet on this one. This one could have tore us up. And I'm like, you're right, man. This would have burned you. Much like the next issue, I think also. Well, first
the next issue. Univision and Trump. Apparently, there's been a war between Donald Trump.
That's not the next one.
No. Okay, sorry. Next one.
Unless you want to say anything about the SCOTUS and ACA.
I think it's all in the administration of ACA, and it burns me up. I believe in people being able to be insured, right? But I think that the state should be the insurer of last resort and not the insurer of preference. Right? I think that the state should not be the primary insurer for most of the citizenry. It should be the insurer of last resort. Therefore, if you can't get insurance anywhere else, you get state-subsidized insurance. And that you would want insurance outside so that it is more dynamic, right? People are then trying to be awesome and not trying to meet minimum requirements. That being said, this does push the ACA, which doesn't go to my general philosophy of a more efficient way to do insurance, forward. So it dodges a bullet for many, many people, some of which who are close to me, that do deal with the Affordable Care Act and have that as their insurance. But the actual apparatus that is being supported here, I don't think is the best way to reach the goal that I think that many of the people who are doing it really have.
The words of Winston Churchill come to mind. I think it was Winston Churchill, and I'll paraphrase, because it was about, he said, democracy. It's a horrible form of government, but it's the best thing we've got so far.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was never. I can't remember.
Something along.
It's something along.
Yeah, butchering. And I take the Economist lines, where the Economist line, which was when it comes to the ACA, is like, it's an ugly bill, but it's the best one we've seen put forward by a government, because really no one else seems to be putting anything else out. So, single payer system.
No single payer.
National health care.
No single
NHS.
payer. No, but how much does the NHS cost? Huge amounts.
Less than we spend on healthcare in the United States. Yeah.
Okay, but it's a sticky problem. That there are so many pitfalls, and it's a difficult thing to work out because there's no clear, obvious silver bullet.
You stole my classic phrase. I hate silver bullets. Yeah.
There is a magic bullet, but it killed JFK, so it's been used already.
And a magic loogie that Keith Hernandez spit.
What?
Seinfeld, man, come on. Keith Hernandez, the magic loogie. You never seen that?
Nothing.
I'll have to find it and send you the YouTube video. You'll crack up.
Have I lost my white kid card for not watching enough Seinfeld?
Yeah. You don't want to watch Seinfeld?
I just haven't
What's
watched
the matter
enough.
with you?
I just haven't watched enough Seinfeld.
It's on
to really get all the
Hulu.
reference.
All right.
So let's go to the other one that has made it in everybody's Facebook feed this week.
Holy crap, yes.
You can't go anywhere without seeing red equal signs and rainbows across photos.
I think my favorite meme photo, I think George Takei put up, and it was someone like me opening my computer browser this morning, and it was someone looking at their computer, and they were just getting this face full of rainbow, and it's just like, and it's like that's funny because it's true.
So the SCOTUS this week on June 26th, which is a fairly notable date for many decisions that the SCOTUS has put out, which is rare, by the way, for the SCOTUS to put out a decision on a Friday. It is unusual for them to do that. But from what I understand, what was it, Sotomayor that wanted it to go out on the 26th because it was the same date that they had shut down DOMA.
DOMA, yeah. I didn't realize that.
Decisions.
Yeah. That's so.
So the 26th was important, and there was released a decision that effectively made marriage just marriage. There is no longer marriage equality. There is no longer gay marriage. There is two humans that are both citizens can get married. I don't even think you have to be citizens. Two legally recognized humans can get married. Doesn't matter about anything else. You're good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know too much of the nuance of the decision. I would yield to my friend Tom on that. But
I will yield to the internet and say love is love, since that seems to be. It's a fascinating decision to read. Like I obviously it's a huge one to read. I love the fact that apparently I saw someone talking about how also Google running of the interns. If you haven't seen the running of the interns yet, it's hilarious because what the running of the interns is when they read the decisions, the interns come running out to their press contacts with copies of the decision to hand them real time the decision. So there's just all these young men and women just kind of running with sheets of paper. Usually these decisions are printed on kind of booked pamphlets. that I don't have, I don't know what the dimensions are. This decision, which was I'm gonna make sure which was Obergefell v. Hodges. This decision was printed on 8.5 by 11 pages, which one legal analyst said was an indication that they were still working on some of the language of this up to like the last minute. It wasn't something that was written, cut, sent to the press, sent to the printers. I mean, perhaps it was for fear of leak because this is such a
momentous decision.
This is a landmark decision. I was looking. It was interesting. I saw a description say landmark decision. I was like, let me look at. I think it was a wiki page for it. I was like, let me look at landmark. And I was looking at all the list of what they deem as landmark decisions, and I went, yeah, this is actually huge. And first off, it's amazing that this is a country. We live in a country that in 2003 there was a Supreme Court decision throwing out the sodomy laws in Texas. So,
also on the 26th of June.
Are you serious?
I am not.
Holy
I'm not
crap.
kidding. That's why it all came down and made it important.
I knew about DOMA. I didn't know about the Texas sodomy laws.
Look it up.
Holy crap. That's fascinating. They're gunning for this to be a holiday.
I know. Like, seriously, this has to be New Gay Days.
Yeah.
Right? June 26th has to be the New Gay Day.
When were the Stonewall riots?
Texas versus Johnson, is that it?
That's funny. If it's Texas versus Johnson, that's funny. The Stonewall riots were, that's the Pride Parade was 28.
Lawrence versus Texas.
June 28th was the riots. Okay. Lawrence versus Texas. That sounds.
Lawrence versus Texas.
Well, so this decision was 5-4, with the 4 liberal justices and the Kennedy this wing for the decision, and the more conservative justices obviously dissenting. It's worth reading, because there's some lovely language. Justice Kennedy wrote the majority opinion. And I think it's probably going to be emblazoned on. I'm looking for Etsy to see like people who have already quilted passages. I'm not joking.
Or the entire thing.
There's some lovely language. Also, I know it's going to get quilted because it's fucking hilarious. Is if you haven't read some of Antonin Scalia's dissension, his dissension. There is some funny language. One person I think said this is the first time ever in a Supreme Court decision you will ever hear the word read the word hippie, because Antonin Scalia wrote, "Just go ask a hippie. Just go ask the nearest hippie you find." That's official. That's
wow.
That came from one of the 3 branches of our government. Go ask the nearest hippie. Antonin Scalia is losing his mind. It's so wonderful. That's an angry man. But yeah, so overnight, 50 states already. You saw, there was that elderly couple in Texas became the first legally married couple.
And the guy asked the asked the Justice of the Peace, "Do I get a senior discount?"
Nice. But to what you said, I think it's great to circle back to that line of, it's no longer marriage equality, it's just marriage. That's actually very close to the same line that the plaintiff in the case made. The plaintiff, who was he is the widower, his husband died, and I guess he lives in Ohio, and he was trying to argue for the state to recognize the death, that this death was his, that he was legally married.
Yep.
Yeah. And he said something along the lines of, I'm looking forward to, this no longer being called gay marriage, but being called just marriage. I was like, right on, man.
All right, so here's your whole hippie citation. The nature of marriage is that through its enduring bond, 2 persons together can find other freedoms, such as expression, intimacy, and spirituality. He quoted from the majority opinion before adding, "Really? Who ever thought that intimacy and spirituality, whatever that means, were freedoms? And if intimacy is one, would think freedom of And if intimacy is, one would think freedom of intimacy is abridged rather than expanded by marriage. Ask the nearest hippie."
It's daggers, man.
Boom! Like seriously.
I think poof. I can't remember if it was the Onion or if it was the New Yorker, but there was a headline for an article that says Antonin Scalia says, "Fuck it, do whatever you want."
Fuck it.
And then the Onion also said Antonin Scalia arrested trying to burn down the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
It's a funny man. I find the Supreme Court fascinating to me. It's the fact that these I think it's a wonderful thing that they're justices for life, because I think it creates this fascinating connections between time and periods. Because you have younger justices who are from this decade, or you have people who are appointed. I mean, Kennedy was appointed by Reagan, so you have someone dating back to the 80s. So there's this continuity of time in one body. They don't have to worry about
being reelected,
raising money, being reelected, having to play
anybody,
the
really.
time.
They don't have to worry about pleasing anybody.
So does it sometimes put brakes on the wheels of progress? Absolutely. We can look at some decisions that are dark marks. Plessy versus Ferguson, the Dred Scott decision. Those absolutely are kind of ugly scars on the Supreme Court, and there's more as well. But also, I think it creates this fascinating body that lives separate from
the reality
the rest
that
of
the rest
government.
of us are. Yep.
And lets people. I mean, just the fact that Kennedy, appointed by Reagan. Fascinatingly, like, you look at him and like, this is obviously someone who votes based on their conscience and what they believe. They look at what's in front of them and kind of make the decision based on what's in front of them. Or Roberts, who was appointed by Bush, who sided with Kennedy and the others in the ACA. It's just fascinating. I find it fascinating.
At some point, though, Tom, science is going to get so good at keeping people alive that a lifetime appointment is a terrible idea.
Interesting.
I think it should be limited to 2 generations.
What's like 40 years? Or
whatever the average of Americans, their first child is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So right now I think the average is 26 as your first child.
Okay.
Right? So then you say that's a generation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say twice that long, which would be 52 years, is the longest that you can serve on the Supreme Court.
Because
what happens
when we live to be 150?
Right. If we live to be 150 and somebody gets on the court at 62, you can't ever churn. Right? Because imagine now if we had somebody that was appointed by FDR that's still on the court today.
Wiggy.
You got no opportunities there, you know?
Right. Yeah. So right now, because of biological conditioning, it's a
right. Then it inherently says that you have an expiration date.
Good.
So that 2 cents. That's probably not necessary,
I like it.
but. So I support everybody who wants to get married out there. Apparently, lots of people got married on Friday just because now it was a day to rainbow it and make it happen. So, mad props to those who now have the opportunity that they did not have previously.
But be prepared for the fight to continue, because those are already the anti-marriage people. I'm going to say that now. The anti-marriage people are already making plans for their next kind of attack on the concept. So they haven't given up.
I am okay with any one church not wanting to do marriages of whomever they want. I just don't think that it's something that our government should dictate. Right?
And it didn't. So, this decision does not force churches to
not if you listen to Glenn Beck.
Well, I don't.
That was the reference. So in the echo chamber that happens with these people who are anti-marriage are these folks who feel like now it's going to be in my backyard and people are going to force me to love it. And I got a Facebook comment on my 2000 on the DOMA decision, and I had posted a picture that says, telling other people they can't get married is like telling other people because you don't believe in gay marriage, telling other people they can't get married is like forcing no one else to eat a donut because you're on a diet. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And somebody commented this morning on that I don't even know this person, but somebody commented on that this morning saying, no, it's not. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a very valid argument. No, it's not.
Good point you make there. I'm going to have to rebut you with yes.
Oh, sorry. It says, no, it's not. It's being straight.
What?
Right. No, it's not. It's being straight.
Oh, jeez.
So there you go. Oh, sometimes.
Speaking of annoying straight people, let's move to television and
let's move to television. Yes.
To the
universe. To the universe.
To the universe.
Both unis.
Both Univision.
Right.
Who, thank you, Univision, for your World Cup coverage, which you were streaming wonderfully throughout most of the World Cup this past summer. Loved it.
Yes.
Free. Yes. Watch it from work. Good connection too, and also Spanish language commentary. So I'll be like, go! That's great. So that windbag's there versus the windbag we have here, which is Donald Trump. Yes. Univision is dropping the Miss USA pageant.
Miss Universe.
Miss Universe. Get it?
Now you see the unit?
Yeah. From their, they're dropping it from their channel.
Right.
In light of Donald Trump's bewildering, but par for his course, comment about Mexico and immigrants.
It's okay. They're all rapists, right?
Yeah. Well,
did you see? He
some
confirmed
some of them are okay.
He confirmed it.
How the fuck?
He was on an interview with some girl who used to be on CNBC, and I think she's on CNN now. And she goes, "So what are you standing behind your statement? I know you've backtracked a little bit on what you said there, but
that's a great question, Diana.
About Mexicans being rapists. Well, they are.
I have this sheet here that details it. I'm not going to read it now because the media will rip me apart. But I have a list right here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, the fur man.
I applaud. I applaud. I feel like they did this without even like a petition. Now there's a petition saying, to CBS to have them drop or whatever channel, NBC, to have them drop The Apprentice and all this. But I applaud Univision for saying, you know what? I'm playing ball with it.
We just don't believe in it. Yep. Well, and Univision is growing leaps and bounds, so they're doing all kinds of great stuff. So they are able to wield that power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of somebody who can't wield that power, this isn't on the list, but Taylor Swift is yielding more power than Apple.
Oh my God!
Google could not bring Apple to its knees. What was the other big conglomerate that tried to bring Apple to its knees? The whole recording industry tried to bring Apple to its knees, but no. Who brought it to its knees? T Swift. That's right.
She shook it off.
She did. And I applaud a single individual to write a strongly worded letter to change an entire company's policy.
Yeah. Or to leverage resources, which is leveraging her fan base to basically put the fear.
And she says that she doesn't ask for free iPhones, but I bet in one swag bag she got free Apple products. In one of her swag bags for the Grammys or something like that, she got a free iPod.
And that was their choice. That was their choice to give that swag out. And so it was her choice to say, you're not playing my music. No, sorry, you're not playing my music for free.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was like perfect use of labor to fight capital.
I think of Taylor Swift like I think of Chick-fil-A. They put out a good product, and Chick-fil-A decided not to give it away on Sundays or not even sell it on Sundays, and I support their ability to do that. But it's a pain in my ass whenever I want to go have Chick-fil-A on Sunday and they're closed. It's a pain in your ass, Taylor Swift, that I can't listen to you on free streaming services, but I completely support your ability to make that decision on your own.
Oh man, that's the weirdest turnaround of that old classic. I will defend, even though I do not like what you say. I will defend your right to say it.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Oh man. Speaking of defending rights to, how about defending rights to stay? I wrote this as Grease Lightning, but I'm an idiot. I should have put Grease, Greece, Lightning. I just went right with it's Grease Lightning. Talk about, we were talking about the Supreme Court decision that was probably still being written at the last minute because of the way it was printed. This thing with Greece and the European Union and the bailout is, good Lord, it's kind of scary. There's still the optimists are saying a decision will be finally made, but it's getting ugly. It's coming down to the wire. If you don't know, Greece is due to pay up a pretty substantial repayment to the IMF that they can't do unless they have basically an extension of their bailout or the next extension of funds from their bailout from the European Union. And they're at loggerheads over a lot of the details of what Greece's austerity plan and kind of restructuring plan will be. And I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of egos on the line right now.
Yep.
There's a lot of people upset and angry. You've got a left leader in Greece who has a party that even if a decision gets agreed with in Brussels, I think they're negotiating, he might turn around and come back to Greece and his parliament would be like, nope, that's not what we were voted for.
That's right.
And
so here's to me the fundamental issue, right? So Southern Europe had historically always used their currencies in a highly leveraged manner. The Deutschmark was always very backed and solid. Mm-hmm. So when they joined those two philosophies on how to handle money, and with Germany being the strongest economic force in Europe, as far as its exports and as far as its production ability, et cetera, they have overpowered all other realms and have dictated how these other societies are to treat the currency. So effectively, the Germans are strong-arming everybody else in Europe and winning quite heavily in doing so, becoming stronger by doing that because they're very good at knowing how to have a fully backed currency. Because the Deutschmark was always a very backed in reality currency, whereas the Italian lira was always flying all over the place, Right. When things were good, they were very good, and when things were bad, they were very bad, right? But the Deutschmark was very solid, and so now they're trying to make the euro into the new Deutschmark and then force the rest of Europe to use it. And it benefits many places in Europe to have a single currency, but they don't have the same philosophical way of doing things. And for what the most poignant statement I've heard about this is that Greece is going to end up the way that Crete or Cyprus is handled, where they don't make any of their own monetary policy. It's all edicted from Brussels or from Berlin. And then which is not great for the people of that particular country, but is very good for the overall currency.
Overall health of the currency.
The overall health of currency, and for that country's ability to have a strong tourism and these kinds of things that are dictated and exchange of goods and services because of the good currency that they are a part of. But for the people of that thing, they're screwed in many ways.
Yeah.
And that's the most likely way that's going to end up going.
Sucks. I've never been to Greece. I'd like to go.
But it's so insanely expensive because of what you're having to pay the tax burden as the tourist, because there's nothing else they make in Greece except for tourism. They make the Parthenon, which they made 4,000 years ago.
I'm sure they make other things in Greece.
The per capita production, non-tourist production in Greece, I think they said is the third lowest in all of Europe.
Oh, man.
The per capita production. So it's not exactly, a production-generated economy.
No.
So the next is a piece of, can I call it history or can I call it fallacy? So there was
the intersection of the two.
And let's speak on intersection. If you were to take two red bars across the screen and intersect them in the center with stars, it would not be the Union Jack. What I'm referring to is the stars and bars of the southern half of the United States, which apparently wasn't the symbol of the entire Confederacy, but has been taken on as a symbol of the Confederacy and Southern pride, which translates in many realms to racism, and it has been flown over the capital of many southern states, one of which being Georgia. Not too long ago, the stars and bars were flown over the Georgia Capitol, but as I look at them right now, they are not there now.
I think it was 2003 that they redid the Georgia flag.
I think that's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
But in South Carolina, there was a Confederate flag that was flown at the Capitol building somewhere, and a number of other states also had the Confederate flag flown somewhere, and that is all falling apart due to the attack on the church in South Carolina, in Charleston, and the outcry that was proliferated by that attack, and the public outrage that says it is time that we fix this. There is no reason in this day and age that we let a symbol of hatred be still promoted and stated in the capitals and in the government buildings of our great nation.
Right. I read a long passage this morning by, I don't know who she was. She was some lawyer, I think, out of Alabama, and she made the point of, look, I'm not, and I looked her up, I think she's a civil rights lawyer, so she's speaking from a base of knowledge. She said, look, I'm not going to advocate that, some redneck yahoo can't fly it in his backyard or deciding he wants to get it tattooed on his chest. I am going to say that a government agency, any government agency, shouldn't be utilizing flying because you're representing the people, not
the entire group of people.
And the fact that a lot of these states, South Carolina began flying that flag in 1961. What was going on in 1961? Oh, I don't know, maybe the civil rights movement or something. So to kind of claim that this is like some tie to, this is our history and culture, and I'm like, no, you're using this. You intentionally put this up as a symbol to kind of draw a line in the sand and say.
But I think it was really just a couple of people that put it up as a symbol to their good old boys, saying, yep, there's some good old boys in this here house, right? And then the guys who were fighting the civil rights battles were fighting other things, right? They were trying to get things that were originally more important than whether or not there's a flag flying.
Being able to vote.
Being able to vote, being able to not be, not have judges that were guilty until proven innocent,
right.
And these kinds of things that
yeah.
make a difference in humans' lives. And so they were fighting those battles first instead of fighting the flag battle. And to me, that's really the good news here, is that we've gotten to the point where the battle we're fighting is on symbols.
Yeah, and I think it's there's obviously more battles to be fought, but I think eliminating the symbol, especially eliminating at the government level, because if you look at it, you're like, all right, I guess the system that's the way this apparatus is angled, and it's like, no, if anything, it needs to be stripped of that. So that there's a belief that government, police, any municipality is not, firmly entrenched in that camp.
Okay, and just like I would say that you shouldn't have the stars and bars, the Confederate flag over a capitol, you shouldn't have the Black Caucus have some symbol that they put over a capitol either, and that any group, no matter who you are, whether you're a preferred group or a non-preferred group, you shouldn't be able to put your group flag over. And I want to get to a post-racial society as soon as possible, to where we don't talk about marriage equality being gay people get to marry and straight people get to marry. I want it to just be people get to marry. All right, so at the same time, I want it to be people are equally viewed by the law. Not white people are equally viewed and black people are equally viewed. I just want people to be equally viewed and Americans to be the point of reference and not a black American or African American or Cuban American or any of those kinds of things. I just would prefer us to get closer and closer to a society that dictates legal rights not based on the color of your skin. That's utopian.
That's dark. Yeah, that's like they achieved that by 2520 in Star Trek, because that's, you know, because then the next movement is not to be called, you know, stop referring to us as we're Americans and they're Mexicans and they're Canadians. We're all residents of planet Earth, as part of the Federation of Planets.
And if there is a central entity, then I see an argument for that. But to me, I'd like to. I guess I'd just like to be identified as the largest group. Man. I'm just going to the largest group we can sustain. Right? But in any case,
we don't think we can ally ourselves with the Venetians and Martians and find common ground.
Not yet.
You are such an Earth bigot.
But speaking on the coming together, there was, well, not really even coming together, but the racial tensions that have been going on based on the whole Charleston thing. At a historically black church, there, President Obama went there, and the first time that a president that I have ever heard of has utilized such a racially charged and such a powerful song that he actually sang Amazing Grace in front of.
You're calling Amazing Grace a racially charged song?
Okay, so it is to me, it is a song that is from those people in the struggle, right? And so it is the consoling song of those who have been oppressed. That's where I'm getting that. Is it feels like.
Are you a churchgoer? Are you a churchgoer? Are you a religious man?
Sometimes.
I'm not. But I will say, like Kate's church, they sing Amazing Grace at every service.
Okay.
They do it. Interestingly, they do a version that's to the same tune as Danny Boy, which it really kind of works well, surprisingly. It's a song of redemption after, you know, of being lost, being, you know, and being able to turn and find that salvation. So that, which is why he was picked up by, you know, slaves and civil rights movement, because it fits that. So I don't want. That's why I was just like, are you really saying that this is not some spiritual from, you know, the backwoods of 1850s or something? Sorry, I just had to like stop you.
But it has been taken on by that coalition. It has been taken on by that group. And I think that's where the meaning was coming from.
Okay.
And I think that's where the meaning was coming from.
Sorry,
but in any case, he's not an excellent singer, but the sentiment certainly comes across.
Yeah, it was a very.
So if you get a chance to YouTube it and watch it, you should.
It's a great heartfelt, and I think it's. Someone said it's. I think he has. I mean, obviously, he's a very intelligent, not just in the words he uses, but kind of. It was a very nuanced speech.
Yes.
Saying the things that needed to be said in a way that we needed them to be said.
Yep.
It was not. I think it was an excellent speech, and maybe probably like in retrospect, people look back at it and kind of mark it as one of the best speeches of his.
Yeah.
Of his career.
Well, and it's important, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because of what was going on and because of the position he's in.
Certainly, yeah.
Can I take a pause here? And I have looked at the dashboard, and I'd just like to remind you and me both to thank our viewers out there. I'm looking there and seeing the people who are watching this show, and I'd like to thank them for watching this show. Personally, I would like to send you all a letter, but there's just too many to send a letter. But if you'd like to send a letter to me, I will read all of them. I may not respond to all of them, as there's likely many, but I will read all of them and respond to as many as I can.
I can't read. Don't mail me.
Oh, do we have an asshat?
Yeah, we're gonna close it out with a wonderful asshat. My asshat is is Bill Cosby's legal team.
Oh yeah.
Who I guess a lawyer for Bill Cosby argued Friday that it would be terribly embarrassing. I'm putting that in quotation marks. Okay. That's the line for the comedian if documents from a 2005 sex assault lawsuit were unsealed. Terribly embarrassing. Everything about you right now is completely humiliating. So just that kind of, it's, because we all know Bill Cosby's the victim here, and we need to protect him from being victim in his eyes.
I wasn't there. I don't really know what went on.
Well, even if you were there, you wouldn't know what was going on because you would have been drugged.
That's correct. All right, well, there you go. In the land of the free where the White House gets painted every color of the rainbow. Did you see that in lights?
I did.
There was
a
lot of...
State Building.
And the Empire State Building did it too?
Yeah, and the Magic Kingdom, the Cinderella Castle.
Wow. But selfie sticks are actually banned at the Magic Kingdom, so don't bring your selfie stick.
You're
not allowed to do it. But you can see the rainbow. And so we ask you every week, you can taste the rainbow. Wait, is that
we don't ask that.
Oh, okay. Well, you don't have to think like me.
And you don't have to think like me.
But we ask you to think.com. We'll see you again next week.